Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the webinar on progressive millennial dads. What do they look like? How do they perform their duties? And how are they breaking through the gender stereotype of caregiving? My name is Pallavi Mahajan, and I'm going to be the moderator of today's webinar. A very happy Father's Day to all the fathers who are traveling this difficult path of learning, of questioning, of understanding where they falter, and of receiving more inconspicuous benefits than conspicuous ones. Today we have with us three mothers and two fathers who are in their own way trying to break through what a definite father, what a progressive father looks like. Through their respective journeys, we will get to know that today's father changes nappies, also has a difficult talk. That today's father makes sure that pink is not just for girls, but make sure that there are ground rules established for both the children. That today's father does the breastfeeding talk with the mother, but also makes sure that there is equal sharing of responsibility at home. I'm very happy to introduce the panel to you. We have Astha and Tushar as the parents of young Arhan. We have Soma and Hassan as the parents of Ayana. We have Meghna and Himanshu. Unfortunately, Himanshu cannot be present with us on video, but we received all the inputs of Himanshu on the audio, and their parents to Romaisa and Ronish. I would now request the panel to kindly introduce themselves. Hassan, can we start with you, please?
Yeah, of course. First of all, thank you for the invitation, Pallavi. This is something I've never done before. Seems professional, but I'd like when Soma, my wife, told, and I thought down to write, you ponder over there and again, you go through the again and again, and you start losing actual essence, emotions, and some personal spirit. So, although I did jot down a few points, family business, full time, part time babysitter. I met my wife roughly around 11 years ago in England. She was my sister's university friend. We've been married now for the last 4.5 years, and we live here in India together. I'm a father to a supercharged up 20-month-old cute daughter, Ayana, we lovingly call as Yana. She's my buddy, and I've been absolutely loving the new role of being her dad. There's so much to say and discuss, and so much that comes to your head when the topic of parenting comes up. It's a very subjective topic at the end of the day, and there's definitely no one size fits all kind of a solution to various parenting problems that both new and old parents face, or maybe perhaps prospective parents are likely to face. No one can really plan a perfect parenting style. Although we are supposed to be the panelists today, but I'm pretty sure we'll all agree that by no means are we experts or perfectionists when it comes to parenting. Uh, Especially us people who are new modern day generation, people who have seen change at a much faster pace. We've been exposed to a lot of other dynamics that our parents and grandparents were. But with that said, some people are indeed able to plan and execute things exactly as per their visions, but there are many moments that are well beyond their control. A child's behavioral patterns, their innate tendency to like or dislike certain things. Of course, they're based on genetic factors as well, but there are a lot of things that are beyond the control of a parent, and you have to take each moment and each day as it comes. You may want your child to be prim and proper. You may want your child to be calm and relaxed and be in a certain way, but each child has their own personality, and it's really important to let them have that freedom so that you do not suppress their true identity and do not impose your visions and your identities on them. Of course, you've got to be around to guide them, explain things to them, discuss things with them. But I personally do not believe in enforcing things with a lot of pressure on kids, because then they start losing their true identity. Both Soma and my wife and I, we wanted a daughter. I personally can't pinpoint as to why we had this preference as to why we wanted a daughter. But if I were to think over it deeply and with a lot of thought, I think it's got to do with the fact that me personally, I've never been a fan of rules and systems and fixed traditions. And unfortunately, in our society, even more so in India, we still do not look at women as being equal to the men. We have child infanticide issues, we have feticide issues, women are beaten up or killed if they give birth to a girl child. I think that kind of stuff does play in the back of your head. So unknowingly and unintentionally, when you do not want to follow the systems and the rules, these kind of things push you towards wanting to do things in a different way, wanting a little liberation, wanting a little freedom, and having a baby girl and watching her grow into someone or some person that people think only men can be. That was perhaps a little bit of an idea in the back of our head as to why I personally wanted a daughter. Another reason perhaps could be the fact that I've seen a lot of individual, self-standing, hardworking women in my household as well as my wife's household. Women who have worked independently, women who have worked for a long time. So yeah, these are perhaps some of the reasons why I wanted a daughter, and I'm really, really happy to have one today. The focus of today's webinar, I believe, is specifically progressive parenting. When Pallavi and my wife Soma told me about it, it was actually the first time that I thought about what do the words progressive parenting actually mean? How do you define it? What is progressive parenting like in fixed terms? Am I a progressive parent? Are there check boxes that I need to tick off to be a progressive parent? Everyone will have their own opinions and definitions. And I'm pretty sure even when we discuss this subject today, the same set of parents, same couple will have different opinions because it's a very subjective topic at the end of the day. I personally believe that to be progressive in any field of life, even more so in parenting, you've got to go right to the start, like right to the baseline of things. For the lack of a better example, think of a water pipe. When it bursts open, there are two ways you can handle it. You can either put a sealing tape of where the crack or the issue has occurred, but that would be a short-term solution, right? Or uh, or you can think of a long-term and a permanent solution. You can think about the construction of the water pipe, material of the water pipe, the pressure that the water, what is the pressure of the water that's flowing through the pipe. So similarly, in parenting, I believe you've got to go right to the start, right to the bottom of things, right to the baseline, so that it's you've got a long-term fix to things, and not just fix. You've got a long-term basis and grounding towards being progressive. For me personally, the baseline when it comes to progressive parenting is acceptance by anyone and everyone of parenting being an actual job, an actual hardworking full-time role. Obviously, I don't mean to give it a negative connotation as if to say that parenting should just be considered an arduous task or physical labor, but we've got to start valuing and respecting parents. I'm aware that we as humans are biologically and instinctively wired to nurture a young one, but those instincts can only come to the forefront when we ourselves start accepting and valuing the roles of parents. So if you're not a parent yet, be supportive towards your friends and relatives who are parents, especially the new ones. That's being progressive right even before you become a parent. Once you've done that and you're at a stage where you're going to become a parent, invest time, read stuff, observe things, discuss with other new parents. Make an effort to take out time to understand things about newborns, infants, and toddlers. It will help you start building a connection even before your child has arrived. This is what Soma and I did, and a lot of our friends, family, and parents, they thought we're going insane. We've gone into an overdrive mode, but I personally believe that paid off in the end because the kind of connection that we have with our child, we do not see in a lot of newer and younger parents around us. Then once the child does arrive, after you've done your reading, invested your time, made a conscious effort knowing about the child that's going to arrive soon. Once the child does arrive, share the roles and duties that require your attention as a parent towards the child. That's why I do not agree with a lot of friends and acquaintances, unfortunately, who rely too much on house help and housemates, especially in the early years of a child's life. In fact, in my personal opinion, I also do not think it's progressive enough relying solely on your parents, that is the child's grandparents, healthy ways of bringing up a child. Their ways and ideas, although not wrong, may not be current. And if you expect to see changes or wish for your child to be at the same pace of the changes that the world around him is seeing, then put yourself to the forefront, because you and your mind are more current than your parents is most likely. I'm sure as we go through, I don't want to take more time. We're going to hear a lot of different opinions, a lot of opinions that we might agree on, we might not agree upon, because by no means are we uh, perfect parents. That's what I believe. But yeah, just to start with, that's my introduction. And as we go through, we'll discuss further. But I'm a happy, proud father of a 20-month-old beautiful daughter, Ayana. And that's my introduction.
Thank you so much, Hassan. I think you have encapsulated the entire webinar in your introduction, that it is so important to bring both how child rearing has a close nexus with gender disparity in the world, and still we have to give that benefit of doubt, that position of vulnerability to our parents, and not hold them accountable for their entire journey. Thank you for sharing so honestly your views about parenting. Tushar, can we hear your story, please?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Pallavi. So I'm Tushar Singhania. I'm married to Asta, and we're both living in the UK. I'm a British-born Indian. I would say that our family as a whole is probably a little bit more Indian than the usual Asian families here in the UK. As my brother-in-law who's on the call will also vet, because he gave me quite a good grilling when Asta and myself got introduced. So I think the reason why I wanted to join the call, I echo everything that Hassan Bhai said. You know, it's very true. I completely agree with completely agree with all the notions that he presented to the forum. I think for me, I want to say, and I want to reiterate, that there's no guidebook, there's no manual on this. Everyone is doing their own thing, and look, you know, there is an element of what everyone is doing is right for them as a parent and right for them, for their child. I think it also depends on the type of personality that your child has. You know, our 3-year-old Arhan, he is a bundle of joy. We've loved every moment with him, and quite frankly, me as a person, I think I've always had it innately inside of me that I've always looked forward to being a father. This could be because of my situation. Again, everyone's situation differs. My situation is that I'm the eldest of my generation on both sides, and by default, that meant I got married the earliest. Obviously we had a child first, and in terms of everyone else in the generation. And because of the age gap, I actually ended up babysitting a lot of my cousins in the UK when they were babies. So that meant I was changing nappies at the age of 10. And obviously at that time in London, for a 10-year-old to be babysitting, it wasn't that strange. Obviously now there's a lot more strict guidelines and rules. But if you imagine, I have been surrounded by babies, pretty much a newborn baby, pretty much every 2 or 3 years in my life. And that has massively had an impact, I would say, on my parenting, my parenting approach. It could be because I've built up a more of a friendship with all my cousins. I don't see them as children, so to speak. And Asta and myself have been quite conscious with the way that we interact with Arhan. You know, we want it to be an adult to adult conversation. It doesn't have to be parent to child. We don't want to feel like we don't want him to feel like that he does not have a voice. It's very important for him to feel he's got his own voice, he's got his own opinion, even at this young age. The other thing I have to say, I want to say that I believe that the approach by men when it comes to being, you know, a father and their role to play in their children's life is changing positively. You know, I can only go by what I've seen with my grandfather, my father, their involvement, what they were involved in. I believe that, especially here in the UK, for those that you do not know, that don't know, fathers are very hands-on in the UK. And I think that's also coming out in a lot of the people that we know back in India. And that for me is huge, because India's playing catch up on so many different ways, because it's still a very young country. You know, we got our independence very recently compared to other countries. So we're navigating through so much. And I think for me, it's such a positive thing to see that A, we've got so many people dialing in. B, there is a shift happening. It may not be to the speed at which everyone wants, but it is happening. And I think, you know, the ways that a father will apply himself to being a dad or to being, in their children's life is changing for the better. And if there's anything else that we can sort of do in this forum, try and help that along, try and give you a little bit of insight on what we do, what may work, may not work, I'm happy to answer those questions, and I hope we can add some value.
Thank you so much, Tushar, and thank you specifically for bringing to the forum that that environment of respect is not relegated to age. Even though it's a child, the child also demands the equal respect of being an individual. And that kind of caregiving is going to make sure that the child has an identity and individuality of his own. So thank you so much for bringing that to the forum. Meghna, can we hear from you, please?
Hi, my name is Meghna Midha, and I'm a PhD scholar in gender and sexuality. And I'm also a freelance writer, co-founder Azad Initiative, and a mom to two beautiful kids, 7-year-old Ronish and 2-year-old Rumaisa. So I'm going to tell you a story that I wrote because that is what I do best. I write. I was 20 and just out of college when I got married. 11 years back, I thought this was it. This was the end to my 20-something dreams and beginning of a completely different life. Succumbing to a norm back then, I certainly was not strong enough to go against it. Despite being into a happy matrimony, I think I was fighting a battle of finding my identity. Until one day, I decided to resume my education. I've been labeled a latecomer all my life amidst my peers. This time, I was running late in life itself. Yesterday had passed and tomorrow was not mine, but education gave a new meaning to my existence, and I assured myself it was not over yet. Thus began my quest for self. And ever since then, I've been a student, oldest one in my class, daughter, wife, daughter-in-law, and a mother. A role that I happily chose, a decision we as parents will cherish throughout our lives, mother and father to our kids. I feel both the parents play an imperative role in the development of a child in terms of providing sense of security, both physical and emotional. The society we live in, here gender roles, especially in India, are clearly defined from the very beginning. Progressive parenting is when one wants to bring a change in blurring those gender roles altogether. And it is not only about child rearing, I must tell you. Progressive parenting is challenging the status quo of gender roles in every aspect of your married life. And here I was with a man who gave wings to the dreams of his wife and had already challenged a major hegemonic structure. However, fatherhood certainly did not come overnight to Himanshu. It's not like he was changing diapers or cleaning up our firstborn right after he was born. But his sheer presence in those days by my side today, when I look back, was very comforting. He was up with me all night. Our son did not sleep for the first 6 months, like the whole night he used to be up. So waking up with me until dawn crack was comforting. He was sleep deprived, he was trying, and I could see that. The structures again advocate that a woman's prime duty is of being a nurturer. And that left me with all the time in the world to ace my primary caregiving duties while my husband left for work. But I could see without having me to say it out loud, he wanted to be present. He certainly did. He still does. As our son was growing up, he realized that the change was imperative now. Our son's beaming to the smile made him realize that it was his presence he wanted the most. So he started giving the most valuable thing that our son would ever get, his father's time. I remember feeling a streak of pride when, like a pro, quickly he held our second born in the hospital. He wasn't afraid to touch her tiny hands. He wasn't afraid to hold her and love her immediately. Second-time fathers are a bit more trained, I must tell you. Today, he changes her night diapers, wakes up to an alarm for her morning milk routine, spends Saturday nights with our son watching a movie tucked in bed, talk, spend time, play, and we do so much more together as a family. I'm so happy about it. While I snore away to glory at times when he's taking care of the kids and sneak out to work, mostly to write about me, write about them, and write about us. So that one day when our kids grow up, they know that we were work in progress. We were progressive parenting in progress here in India. So that they know that we initiated the change, that they can reflect on what was and what needs to be done now or then, and navigate their way into the society that moves you to its strong structures. That's about me.
Wow, we had Jane Austen and Virginia Woolf to the party. This webinar suddenly has a lot of literature interface, but yeah. Thank you so much, Meghna, for bringing out so much literature. I'm sure the attendees who are literature enthusiasts would be very, very happy on hearing this. Asta, can we hear your story, please?
Yes, of course. Hello, everybody. My name is Asta Kapoor Singhania. I'm now a resident of London, UK. I am a teacher, a journalist, an author, and of course, as Tushar pointed out, I'm married to him, as he said, and no, I am, and mother to a 3-year-old, 3.5 now. But yeah, parenting for me comes with its own challenges, especially since I'm totally born and brought up in a small town, in India, in a small town. I mean, Agra is considered as a small town anyway. So with the kind of upbringing I had, it was difficult to instill that in Arhan, especially because children are a little different at this age and in this generation, regardless. Now, as Hassan pointed out, what is progressive? I mean, that was a question I actually, you asked us and I took it on myself. What is progressive? And I feel that progressive is, our parents were progressive at their time. So going back 20, 25 years, they were progressive to what my grandparents were at the time, you know. So I think we get, as, you know, step by step, we are getting nearer to what we think is progressive. I mean, it could get regressive after a while, who knows, you know. So, I mean, my parents opened the door for a communication, say, for example. However, we hardly saw our father because at that time there was gender-defined roles. So if my father had to go out and work, he would be out from 9 to 9. He was a bread earner, come back. And there were times when we hardly saw him. So 5 days in a week, if we were at school, in the morning we would go and then it was bedtime, so we could hardly see him. The weekend was with us, with them. But mummy was, she was there, she was our teacher, she was cooking for us, she was cleaning for us, there were roles defined for all of us. However, this kind of changed when we grew up, and, you know, and I see now my mother, she's now working as well, so it's different. But when I became a parent, I think Tushar was very hands-on, so that came as a breath of fresh air for me. He was, and I think he was eager to be a father more than I was eager to be a parent at that time because I was quite young. But having said that, I mean, the kind of help I got from him as a father, where I could actually just kind of demarcate, like, okay, if I'm busy, you take care of it. If he's busy, I'll take care. It was more unsaid than said. So that way we didn't have to kind of define, you know, that's why I kind of applaud Tushar for Father's Day. I mean, totally, I couldn't have done the job I did with Arhan without him. But when culture comes into play, the problem begins then, because I'm trying to kind of navigate between the British pre-defined rules. Oh, you cannot say more than this much because British born are like, oh my God, how could you? It's my life and I have to, you know, live the way I want to. But because I come from India, automatically it's assumed, and I'm thinking it's assumed, that the culture will be instilled by me, that Jan Gan Man will be taught by me, that Bhagwan, Ram and Krishna has to be taught by me, right? So, and then automatically all eyes turn to me, oh, your son doesn't know how to do Vande Mataram or doesn't know how to do Jan Gan Man, for example. Yeah, I mean, he'll take his time. Maybe I haven't done it in the next 3 years. I may do it in the next 2 years, for example. But, you know, those kind of differences and those kind of understanding whether what I can do and what Tushar can do, although he's British born, or for example, for my daughter, if I have a daughter, how will I say that clubbing finishes at 2 o'clock for her and clubbing finishes at 4 o'clock for him? So I have to be very, very, it's a fine line, and it's sensitive, especially when they start growing up and when they start answering back, to say, okay, you know, you can't cross this line, because they'll be out and about. They'll pack their bag and say, you know what, I'm out of here. I'll get my own place and I'm going to stay, because that's how the culture kind of works this way. So it's a little tricky for me, and I know my challenge is what lies ahead. So I think we're just taking a day as it comes, and if I need to be shouting at him, I will. If he needs to get one whack, he probably will. And if I don't want to hear him singing "Mummy" and just say "Mummy" without an accent, then I will. So that kind of little things come to me, and that's my parenting for now.
Thank you so much, Asna. And it is so important to bring into consideration that for partners who come from different but maybe simulating and corresponding cultural differences, for them the fight is at another level. It is between thinking that what might just go wrong and what really defines for the other partner. And therefore, cultural assimilation requires parenting to be a little more proactive. Thank you for bringing that point to the focus. Soma, can we hear your story, please?
Hello. Hi. So hi everyone. This is my first webinar, and obviously introducing yourself is a little difficult. So there's something I've written, which I will read, and it's basically, my name is Soma Hashmi, and I'm a psychologist by education and passion, wife of Hassan, as he already told you, and mom to a super naughty 20-month-old Ayana. Without making it too long, I'm going to go into the gist of our parenting story. Hassan and I met in London while we were completing our masters, and then we moved back to our respective countries, India and Pakistan. Yes, I moved to India after getting married. And I then got married to him and moved in 2016. We did not have any discussions, let alone plans of having a child as soon as we did. But unfortunately, due to health reasons, we chose to think about it. Of course, I was scared and couldn't think beyond wanting to have a child immediately, but it took time to convince Hassan, who was just not ready. We both decided we would wait it out for a year and see what happens. Of course, when we couldn't delay it any further, we decided to try for a baby. That's when Ayana was born on 25th October 2018, and that's where our journey as crazy parents began. We both wanted to know it all from the moment I conceived till date. We wanted to find answers for everything ourselves. We still try to make sure we leave no stone unturned when it comes to being parents to Yana. And of course, I'm sure every parent tries to do that. But anyway, our family members would always joke around that we should open up a little clinic by the name of Google Doctor, because that's literally what we do. We need answers and explanations for everything. The reason I'm saying this is because the culture we belong to is one where we are asked to believe a lot of things just because they've been going on for the last many years. Sometimes you're expected to not question those traditions. We're expected to simply follow them without thinking of the consequences they may have. But I'm a firm believer of change only happening if you question things, if you figure out why a certain thing happens, if you find ways to make it better for yourself and for those around you. There is not a moment that I remember Hassan not being around while I was pregnant. I come from a single parent family, and a very progressive family, by the way, where my mom was both mother and father for me. So I've only ever known what it's like to be raised by one parent. And although my mom has outdone herself as both parents, let me tell you that having a dad around is important. I remember Hassan coming directly to the clinic from work on the days I had my ultrasounds. I remember him going with me to the gynecologist for every weekly or monthly visit. I remember him making sure I was well rested and ate well. I remember him excitedly buying a Doppler just so he could hear Ayana's heartbeat for a bit. I remember him singing to her every night because I'd barely ever feel her kicking. And I see that translate into all the interactions they have today. I watch her face light up when he sings or dances with her. I watch her calm down when he picks her up or lies down beside her. This isn't me blowing my own trumpet, but it's just me stressing over we parents out there, please always communicate. It sets ground for what you want as a parent. Your significant other will not magically know what is going on in your mind, and both of you come from separate families with completely different experiences. But I guess that's the thing about being two people in one parenting dynamic. You bring two minds and hearts together to form an epic team. I'm going to end my introduction here because I realize I can go on and on. And I want to say that there are some dads here who are trying to break stereotypes. There are dads who invest their time and energy in their kids, who prioritize them before their own needs. There are dads who love their kids unconditionally and cry when they cry or feel pain. There are dads like my own husband who come running from one end to the house when they hear their daughter scream or shout. And there are dads, yes, Indian and Pakistani dads, Desi dads who want daughters, who love their daughters like they've never loved before. However, there are still so many underlying issues that are deeply ingrained and have been that way since years. And only if we talk about it, only if we question it, and only if we spread awareness and acknowledge it as a problem will we be able to bring a change. We are still parents in progress, but Yana is only 20 months old. And yes, there's a lot we discuss and a lot we dream to do together as parents. So that's
Thank you so much, Soma. And acknowledgement of whatever little or big efforts that our fathers are making, who are also virgins on this journey, is so important. It is, no matter where we have reached as a society, progressive or not, backlashing is easy. Picking up battles is easy. Forgetting that at the end, there might be certain battles that we lose, but it's the war that is most important. So now we are opening the house to questions. And we already have certain questions with us, but if the attendees want to ask certain questions on their own, they are open to ask the questions to the panel or to one of the panelists. Otherwise, you can use your chat box also. I already have a couple of questions for the panel, so I'm going to address them first. But meanwhile, the chat box is open for the attendees. So we have a question for you, Hassan. It's a real life journey of a father, and he addresses it to you by saying that I'm a single Muslim father. Sometimes I feel our community pushes us more to be stereotyped. Even I want to fill in for my daughter's absent mom, but I'm pushed to believe I can't. What do you suggest? Hassan, you're on mute.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Obviously, there is no correct answer or a fixed solution to a problem like that. But it's quite unfortunate what's really strongly prevalent in the Desi community, and more so, unfortunately, in the Muslim community. First of all, religion cannot be and should not be mixed and muddled up with parenting, for just for your own personal satisfaction. But unfortunately, that's what a lot of people in our community do. As Asta said, the idea that only a mother can teach the child basic skills and manners and give the child the correct religious and worldly education is totally big. Mothers aren't meant to do just this. They can easily take up the role of a dad by becoming the breadwinner. They can be leaders of the house. They can even do this together mutually with the father. Similarly, a father can and should take the initiative and make the effort to share the responsibilities that we are forced to believe are solely a mother's job. Start with the basics. Change diapers, feed food, give her a bath. So in short, what I'd like to say is that the community is not going to raise your child, although it does at times indirectly shape and direct your own thoughts. But trust yourself, be true to yourself, trust your fatherly instincts, trust your parenting instincts. We put mothers on a golden pedestal with the idea that they already know everything, they do not have to learn anything. And it's the fathers who have to learn how to feed and how to take care of a child, how to stop them from crying. But that's not true. We are wired naturally to be parents. We as humans, we are wired to do that. So trust those instincts, be at the forefront, as I said earlier. And this question actually reminds me of, I don't know, it's a saying and a belief in Japan. I don't even know if it's true or not, but it hit home with me. They say that the Japanese believe that we as humans, we've got three faces and three identities and personalities. One is for the outside world. The second is for family and friends. And the third one is the one that we never show to anyone. And that's the truest form of ourselves. Start believing in that third identity and personality. Living race to exist, and we can do whatever we want. Don't let the society tell you that just because sexually and gender-wise you're a man, the only thing you can do is have a defined role of a father, like what the society defines as a father. I just don't agree to that. I'm happy to give my daughter a bath. I'm happy to change her clothes and diapers. I'm happy to feed her. And trust me, it comes naturally once you get the mental block out of your head that the community is trying to create. So yeah, in short, I'd say just trust yourself, your ideas, your instincts, your thoughts. Try to be there for your child in every capacity without thinking whether it's traditionally a man's role or a woman's role. You'll feel at peace and you'll feel comfortable, and you wouldn't bother about what the society is trying to tell you.
Thank you so much, Hassan. The other question is addressed to both Hassan and Soma. So either of you can take it up or both of you can chime in. Who will answer the tough questions for Ayana when she grows up?
Who will answer them, Hassan?
I think, yeah, you can go first, but I just want to say, I think, I'm sure Soma will agree. I think we both will, because we have that sort of a dynamic right from the start, even before we got married. We have always been very communicative. We have always discussed things. We have always been open to each other. And that holds true to any style of parenting as well, more so to progressive parenting. There are certain ideas in my head. There might be certain things that you do not agree with, you do not want your child to do, your daughter or your son. But discuss them with your partner, because their exposure to certain things, their perspective might change your own opinion as well. So I think at the end of the day, both Soma and I are going to be discussing the tough question. But if Soma thinks otherwise, correct me if I'm wrong.
So I personally want both of us to, obviously, I want Ayana to be so comfortable with her father that she can run to him with any problem to discuss. Because in our culture, there are a lot of topics that, we're told, do not discuss it with your father. Oh, you're not supposed to discuss so and so topic with your dad. It's disrespectful. He's not supposed to know about these things. But I mean, you're 50% the parent. And when you say this to a child, you automatically kind of put it in the child's mind that this is something I need to hide. Like, why am I hiding it from the other 50% of my parent? Both the parents need to be open to the idea of share. Like, if I'll just give a small example, like for a daughter, obviously when she starts making friends, she's going to make a lot of friends. It's going to be guy friends, girl friends. I want her to be able to go to Hassan and to talk to Hassan that, oh, I met so and so guy. Because yes, I can guide her, but you feel much more protected if the male figure in the dynamic is also aware. The male figure knows he can guide you, he can tell you from a man's perspective that, oh, this is the way it should be, these are the things you should be careful about. And also other issues, like women issues, like when a girl turns 12, why can't she share her biological problems or whatever with her father? There's nothing to hide. That is the only way we are going to normalize periods or other problems like sexual abuse, if women can discuss it with the first point of male contact, who is their father. So I think that tough questions and such questions need to be addressed by male parents as well.
Thank you so much, Soma and Hassan. Tushar, we have a question for you. It is that, that what are the ground rules you have established for your interaction with your partner to evade from child developing unconscious gender bias at home?
I don't think we've actually sat down and sort of set up these ground rules. I think it's just happened naturally because of the type of people that Asta and myself are. So I think obviously Asta coming, like she mentioned, coming from Agra, it was I think it was an eye opener for her to see how much, in a way, freedom and I would say freedom and a little bit of confidence that she had in moving around in London. I mean, obviously, we all know that there are certain limitations to, say, a girl walking down the street in India. It's not considered safe. There is a little bit of a sort of a stigma attached to it. I think in the UK, for example, it's pretty much safe. The atmosphere is different. So that was an eye opener. So automatically, Asta felt when she came over that all of a sudden it's actually quite chilled out over here. I think the other thing is as well, it all comes down to the two families that are brought together, not just the two people. So the background, Asta's family background is very similar to mine in terms of, we're quite modern, we're quite happy to have open conversations. I think what was a big thing in the UK was that, there is an expectation of the children in the UK to go and be involved with household chores, to be involved with cooking. Like, we've got a rule in the house where every day, especially during COVID as well, every day one member of the family takes turn in cooking for the rest of the family. It's not just down to my mum or my sister or Asta. My father, I mean, he's not the best cook, but he does what he can. Whether it's cheese on toast, it's still something, right? No one's asking him to be Gordon Ramsay. No one's asking him to come out with an amazing dish. Everyone is sort of doing what they can do in their limitations. And I think all these small things, like, I'm not going to be ashamed to say it. During COVID, there's no help coming in. We were all sitting there cleaning our own bathrooms. So there were turns, and Asta and me would have a conversation. Okay, this week you do the hoovering and I'll do the bathroom. And then next week we swap it. And Arhan, he would watch it. He would see it. He would get involved. He would want to help me clean the bathroom. He would want to help Asta do the hoovering. And I'm not ashamed to say it. These are all important life skills. Some of us did not and will not have the luxury of potentially having help, or may not disagree with it in the future. Some people will. It's fine. There's no right or wrong. But it shouldn't be the case where Arhan, I cast my back to Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum. The Hrithik Roshan's younger character, I found it terrible and just stupid that a 30-year-old guy could not tie his own shoelace because he had someone to do it for him. This is the kind of stuff, these are important life skills where you need your kids to be okay to do it and not feel dirty or bad. Like, it's just, and there is no gender assignment to any of these kind of things. And one thing I want to bring to the table, which I think is really important, is that who has had their child turn around and say to them, Papa, Mummy, I want you to go out and earn this much money, right? Who has said to their parent, Papa, you go to work, Mummy, you stay at home, or Mummy, you go to work? No child says that, right? We use our children as an excuse. We use our children, I must be in the office. I can't look after him. I can't come home. I've got to be in the office till late. Otherwise, how am I going to provide? Same thing, mums also are doing that as well with their careers. That's never been said. That's never by your child. You have to see that, I cast my mind back to a friend of mine at work, and we were on a business trip to Hong Kong last year. And he's an English person, and unfortunately he lost his father 2 years ago. Young guy, 26. And he said to me, listen, like, I get it. You want to work hard. You've got ambitions. We're talking about career aspirations. He goes, listen, I've lost my father prematurely. And he said, I don't remember my father's car when he came to watch me play at a football game, right? He goes, I remember that he was there. He goes, I don't remember if we stayed in a 5-star hotel. I remember the times that we were in the swimming pool. I don't remember us going to a restaurant. I remember him just taking me out for ice cream. We put ourselves under pressure. We put ourselves, under immense sort of restrictions and situations to say that we can't do something because we want to do this. Our children don't see us like that. Our children want us there. Their commodity is time. We have different commodities. So for me, whenever Asta and I are looking at, okay, what are we doing? Is she busy or am I busy? It's down to also balancing that out with, where does Arhan fit? So if Asta's working and she's, busy, then I will always try and step up to then be free for Arhan, and vice versa. There should not be a case where both of us are so involved with what we're doing where Arhan gets neglected. So I think that's a really, really key point.
That has happened before.
Of course it's happened. Of course it's happened.
It happens, but it's okay.
Yeah, and it's difficult. Yeah, no one, trust me, please, it's very difficult. Because like you said, especially in the last 3 or 4 months, I'm sure everyone on this call have had their own challenges when it came to COVID, and everyone's businesses is taking a hit. I'm in a transition as well. I'm moving from a banking job into a startup. There's so many different challenges. And I do feel at a time that, pressure's there. And I sometimes will say to Asta, look, Asta, I can't do this. But that's not because of the fact that she's a woman. That is the key thing. And I want Arhan to also understand this. And whenever Asta and I are talking about something, we never say, Papa's doing this, Mummy's doing this. You know, mommy can play football with him in the garden. Papa can do the cooking and cleaning with him at home. There's no gender assignment to any kind of role.
Thank you so much, Tushar. While we are on child rearing and gender unconscious behavior, Meghna, we have a question for you. How can the father address the unconscious gender bias that the child might develop by observing the caregiving and domestic duties at home? So I do understand that it has been put in perspective by Tushar, but Meghna, this is specifically targeted to you, taking into consideration the Indian demography and the Indian environment. So we would love to hear your views on this, please.
I feel things have changed a lot now from the yesteryears. Men nowadays are more involved. So kids are seeing, so every household is different. Especially in India, there are families who are into a conventional setup where women are just doing the household work and men are not even moving from their tables just to keep their dishes. But then there are also families that are sharing the responsibilities, the child rearing responsibilities, the household responsibilities. In my family, I think with Himanshu, this thing came as a blessing that he himself is a very progressive husband, that he gave me a chance to study, which is like, I stay in a small town and people were people were really questioning me that why do you want to study now? Like, you're married. There's a big stigma attached to it. I must, especially staying in a small town and in India. And he himself is a very progressive person. And that is why this came as a blessing that though I know that he really gives less, he used to give less time to us initially, but then that is why he mulled over it and actually brought that change, that we started sharing responsibilities. Whenever he was around, he made sure he was cooking. And I think COVID came as a blessing in our family when there was lockdown, and he was washing the dishes with Ron, maybe cooking sometimes. We were actually doing multiple things when I was working because I was submitting my research papers and I was working, and he used to take care of the kids in those when I was really, really strained with work and stressed. So I think as Tushar said, that there's no role assignment to a particular parent, that I think it should come, one should just exchange roles. And how can we, kids are very good observers, you see. They grasp in a lot without having been told to them that this is what mama is supposed to do and this is what papa is supposed to do. But when they are seeing convention, when they're also observing the conventional setup, they're also observing women who are working out, because things are a lot open nowadays. So that is how you can address these issues with the kids, by talking to them. I think communicating with the kids, spending a lot of time makes a lot of difference. They come up with wonderful answers. I think we can definitely subtly introduce them as to how roles are changing and what do you feel is what is right or what is wrong. So that is how I think we can address all these issues with the kids and bring about a change. And rest, I think all the kids are different. An individual's perspective towards life is different. They are going to navigate their way through life by themselves. You just can tell them what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah, sorry. Astha, we have a question for you. Sorry, thank you, Meghna. Thank you for your inputs. And Astha, we have a question for you. What are the differences in fatherhood you have observed from a time in India versus your time in England?
Lots, like a lot. Now, again, this is not to say that my father was not good at his job. He was excellent. He didn't let me feel insecure about anything. There was always a security net. But obviously what he did was different to what probably Tushar does at his time. Now, I was just, Minati, when you were speaking, I just kind of thought, and Tushar, correct me if I'm wrong, because I would like to know about this, know your opinion. When, were you, before you got married, were you as hands-on to your mother as you are with me now? Or do men change when they have their wives around and children around? It's an observation, because I have not seen, usually it has happened, and correct me, it's just an observation again. But, I think it's on to us to establish some ground rules also, because I want Arhan to know that I need his help. If I need him to wash some dishes, he should. If I want him to help me put the washing machine on, he can. So it shouldn't be when his wife comes, he's like, oh, baby, I will help you. You know, so you have to do this for our children. No, I mean, it should start now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it's going to change. It shouldn't be situational. But as far as my father went, I didn't see him. I saw him, but I didn't see him as much as, say, Arhan gets the time with Tushar. So that way, I think Tushar is very lucky, and Arhan is very lucky to have that kind of bond. We missed out on that kind of family time because Papa was very involved in getting the business together and getting certain amount of income coming in the house, blah, blah, blah. So that was a conventional way of parenting at the time. But like I said, this has changed also in India, because I see my friends' husbands not being, those, I mean, Meghnadi just kind of addressed that. Hassan also told us, and, for the friends who were not this way. So it's not just for me because I'm here, but it's just this generation has had a huge shift, which is amazing. But again, having said that, Papa was any less, I wouldn't say that. I still want to come and, that hug will never, nobody else can give me that hug, or nobody can smell the same as Papa, that kind of thing. So it'll always be different. Fathers will always have an important role, however, this way or that way. But as Tushar said, for us, for Tushar, I think it's even double of our generation's even double a problem, because we're trying to navigate what our parents did, which again was they've set a bar, and we're trying to do more than that, whilst also be a non-conventional father. So I think the challenge is doubled up, if anything. So yeah, I do. You guys have my sympathy. If anything, you have the wives also dancing on your heads that, come on, you have to do this and that and this and that. So it's challenging. Sure.
Yeah, just to add to Asta's point, I think so. One thing, I think it depends on the situation, but I didn't feel that much of a change after marriage. I still felt as if, those same expectations were there. I think the difference is, Asta, maybe a wife would voice it more bluntly than a mother. The mother would be like, he hasn't done it, it's fine. Whereas the wife would be like, and rightly so, your partner would pull you up on not doing something. They'd be like, hold on a second, can you please help me, or whatever, which is fine, right? I think the second thing which I really want to add as well, which when Meghnadi was speaking, was that there's also a natural sort of osmosis when it comes to roles and responsibilities, based on just the profile of each parent. Like teaching. Okay, so Asta's a teacher, right? So she deals with young children, and teaching English and maths every day. Now, I am more than able to explain things to Arhan, but Asta naturally has a inclination to probably being more effective at that than myself, right? I am probably more hands-on DIY. I love, computers. I love sports, etc. So naturally, I take on the role of taking Arhan out, and then, going for a round of golf or going to the driving range to hit a few balls. Now, that doesn't mean that I cannot be involved in the teaching aspect, and that does not mean that Asta cannot be involved in the golf aspect. I actually encourage Asta, whenever I'm taking Arhan to the driving range, it's not just a boys' day. Like, obviously there's times where it's just me and him, which is fine. But my first question will always be, Asta, come with us, so that he understands that this is not associated with just dad. There is a situation where mum can also come along, right? Even in terms of the garden, we've got a little goal, football goal. It's not just me playing with him. Asta and Arhan have had many times when they've played football in the garden. And I think that's really important. So it's also a case of just naturally what someone is probably more skilled at.
Yeah, it's
and
not a gender
they're able
thing.
to do.
It's more skill
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Whatever you're
Yeah.
good at. I'd rather he learns from the best than me trying to learn and then teach him something,
Yeah.
I may learn it with him. Who knows?
Exactly. So I think that's one thing to just clarify. Yeah.
Thank you, Asta and Tushar. Soma, we have a question for you. The question is that they say that motherhood is biological, whereas fatherhood is an acquired taste. What are your views?
So before I address this, I actually wanted to ask, can the panel ask a question? Like, can we?
Yes, please go ahead, of course.
Just following from what Meghna, Asta and Tushar Bhai had said. So what if you are in an environment where it's not just you, and you are part of an environment where the parenting style or the things that go on in a certain household are not as progressive, or some stuff that you want your child to observe obviously, as you said, that children learn from observation, but in your particular household, there are certain things that happen that are against your parenting style. In that case, what can a person do?
Okay, so I could say from our perspective, and Asta, you can obviously add to this as well, but this is, for me, uh, this is where change comes in. Change is so important, and change is also something which people are very resistant to. And one thing that is really important to know, that in any process of change, the first mover is always seen to be strange or almost an outcast in the whole movement. It's always the second adopter who then creates the tidal wave, right? So if Asta was on her own when we got married, and she was this, the only voice, the lonely voice that was saying, Tushar, you need to do this, or Tushar, you need to do that, blah blah blah, or even to my dad, she might say, she could say, oh, she might question, why isn't he as hands-on, says, why is there an expectation of my mom doing stuff? Then I would say that would be an uphill struggle. It might be quite up and down in terms of getting that message across. But by nature of the fact that my sister's in the house, my younger brother's in the house, there are two additional voices. I am also quite vocal about it. So with that comes change. And I think it is difficult in a joint family. I think, we're all either lived or living in a joint family. It does prove to be a challenge. I think you have to have, additional voices to help induce that change. And I think when it comes to parenting styles, yes, sometimes it's not an easy thing to say, but there have been times when Asta or myself have said to my parents, let us handle it. You just have to sometimes put that down. It's not easy, but it gets confusing for the child if there's too many sort of different opinions. So sometimes, and it is what it is. I know it's not an easy conversation to have. It doesn't mean that we love our parents any less. It's just what we feel works best for our child.
I also completely agree with Tushar that change is very important. I think something that you do not, your thoughts do not align with, I think there the change must come in. Being parents to both a son and a daughter, when I had Ron, I think then I never thought, I did think, because obviously I was studying gender, and then I was really, really reflective about everything. I used to really consciously, I should be very conscious about my language also. Like I never wanted to be gender biased or anything. I bought kitchen sets for him because I just wanted to change that thing for him. And even if I was questioned by, we have house helps in India, and they are very extremely vocal about their thinking that why have you bought a kitchen set for a boy? But then you need to be vocal about your things. And being a parent to both son and a daughter, I think it comes with a huge responsibility, because here they're not only observing the gender roles, but they're also feeling how they are being treated differently than the other. The physical difference is not the only difference between them. And perhaps that is why Butler has said that gender is performative, that it naturally become when a certain act is performed over a particular kid or an individual, over the years it becomes your natural way of life. You do not like to question things, it becomes your personality. And that is why change is very, very important. For example, Raksha Bandhan, it is a very small example that I'm giving. It is a traditional, it's a festival where a sister is supposed to tie a band on a brother's wrist, where the brother would promise her protection for life. But I kind of changed this thing when Rumaisa was born, and we started buying two bands. And both my kids exchanged the bands, and I call them the band of love and trust. It is like a promise for life that they are, and in kids terminology, my son says that I get to renew my promise every year with my sister, that we are going to stand by each other and protect each other as equals. So these little changes are very, very important. And you are questioned, definitely. You are questioned, but then you need to just, as Tushar said, that we are not disrespecting anybody's views. And And I think parents also nowadays understand when you talk, I think communicating is very, very important with the parents also, like kids also. I need to communicate with my parents. I'm not only talking about my in-laws, about my parents also, about a number of things. So I think communication is the key to the change that you want to see.
Soma, is that a satisfactory answer? I think Soma's internet is a little rocky. Yeah, Soma. Yeah, is that a satisfactory answer?
You hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
So
So I'll answer the question you asked.
please, yes.
Hello. Something's wrong with our internet.
Soma, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So basically your question was that does parenthood, is it a biological thing for a mom, whereas is it something that a father learns along the way environmentally, basically, in a gist? And I would say that the way to address such a problem, where when a baby is in the mother's womb, for example, from that very point in time, the father needs to be involved. The father should go to the ultrasound appointments. The father should go to the gynae appointments, because that is how a bond is created. When you watch your child growing on a screen, that is when you form that kind of affection towards something that's growing, some life that is coming. And a lot of fathers don't do that. Like till the point of when the baby is born, fathers probably just go with their wives like once or twice, or probably while the mother is giving birth to the baby. And this happens a lot, because the reason I know this is because my mom is a gynecologist, and I hear about this day in and day out. Like every day you will see women sitting with their moms or their mother-in-laws, and you will not see any husband or any male person in sight. Like they don't even want to know what is happening with the child, how the child is growing, if there are anything they can do to help the mother while she is pregnant. And I think that's where it all begins. become a, how can you form an attachment when you're not even involved from the beginning? That is one thing that dads, I think, should be very mindful of here. And secondly, when I talk about my own personal experience, for me, yes, motherhood is biological. But again, like Hassan mentioned, we honestly place women on a pedestal. Even if motherhood is biological for a woman, that doesn't mean that she doesn't have moments where she doesn't feel love towards her child, or where she just does not feel like doing it. Or that does not mean that the father feels any less than the mom. There are women who sometimes just don't have maternal instincts. They do not feel that love towards their child. It takes them time to grow that love, to feel that bond. And that's where probably at that point in time, it's the father who different aspects that come into play. And when I saw Hassan as a father in the beginning, like literally when Ayana was born, she was underweight. So those 7 days that I was in the hospital, Hassan slept single second. Like he would sleep on the couch with his hanging. He would wake up. Hello, can you hear me? Hello. Yeah, he would wake up like every 2 hours to make sure that I was feeding Ayana. It was a very difficult journey because she was really tiny, so it was really hard to feed her. He would just stand there to make sure that I'm doing it properly, that people are not, hovering over me, like, stressing me out. So he was always involved in these little things. Even now, when, how you mentioned that does it come biologically to a parent? Even if it doesn't come biologically to him, I think there's a connection that a father has. Like Hassan automatically knows why Ayana is upset. Hassan automatically knows how to make her happy. What are the little things that will fix her mood? Like there are some times when we start, like, it's so funny, we'll have an argument. If she's screaming, we'll be like, no, this is why she's screaming. Like Hassan will be like, no dude, this is not why she's screaming, are you stupid? And then it's usually him who's right. Like he knows why she's screaming, and he'll pick her up and like he'll obviously console her, and it really works. Like I've seen that happening, even more so with me. Everybody in the house is Papa, even I'm Papa. She'll knock on doors looking for Papa. Where's Papa? Her face will light up when Hassan walks into the room. So I don't genuinely necessarily agree that it is biological, but there is a really, really big component in trying to make an effort to form that bond with your child. And there is a bond only if you try to form it.
Girls are always their father's daughters anyway. So
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Thank you, Soma. Unfortunately, we have just time for the last question. We already have a number of questions, but just for the audience, the panel is marked on our social media. If you want to reach out to the panel for individual engagements or to seek advice, help, rant, you can probably do that. But our last question is addressed to both Tushar and Hassan. It is that, why are the dads so willing to take on the role of a good cop, which is theoretically the easier role to play? Do they realize playing the bad cop or a mother or any caregiver is really emotionally derailing? And have they considered how this might create a relationship bias between the child and each parent? So, Hassan, Tushar, if you can start in.
Tushar bhai, you want to go first?
I just come simple. It's more fun.
I agree.
No, I think. I don't know. I can't, this is going into a territory where I could say something which may not be accurate. I think.
be careful, Tushar.
No, I'm trying to word it in the right way. I think. Okay. It depends on personalities. I find I'm a very pragmatic person. I don't like to think about things which haven't happened. If it comes onto my plate, I will sort it out. Like, I don't want to scare myself into this could arise. Does that make sense? So for me, I'm like, okay, if there's something which is going on, you deal with it. You don't want to overcomplicate it. You don't want to try and add various multi-layers to it. So I think by nature of that approach, I'm pretty pragmatic, even with the way that I interact with Arhan. So, and sometimes rightly so, sometimes I'm sure I'm doing the wrong thing. Asta, for example, has a very clear view and perspective. By doing this now, you are then planting this as a seed which leads to something in the future, which is probably a good way of looking at things. Whereas I think with me, I don't want to say short-sighted, but I'm very much about the now, where if I'm doing something with him now, it's for the now. And I think by nature of that, I'm sort of like, oh, if he's getting cranky or something, I'm like, it's fine, he's probably like this. But I'll be like, no, you don't understand. If we don't get him into a routine of getting him to sleep on time or eating on time, then this causes problems for us going forward, right? Whereas for me, I'm like, oh, he's cranky. He'll eat when he'll tell me when he's hungry, for example, right? So if Asta's busy and I'm cooking the lunch and stuff, I'll say, oh yeah, Arhan, are you hungry? No, Papa. And Asta then will message me. She goes, by the way, have you fed him? And I said, no, because he's not hungry. She goes, no, it's 2:00. He needs to eat. I'm like, but he's not hungry, right? So I'm sure he's a human being. He will tell me when he's hungry. So this is a small example. And my approach is very much like, look, if the guy's hungry, he'll come up to me, Papa, I'm hungry. I'm like, okay, cool, let's eat. And it's just less hassle for me rather than sitting there for an hour trying to force food down his mouth when he may not be in the mood to eat, right? So I'm a bit more pragmatic. I don't know, Hassan, what do you think?
That's why we're laughing. We literally have the same.
Guilty as charged. I think all of us have force-fed our kids at some or the other point of time.
No, but that's not force feeding. That is right time eating.
Because because
it's like you can't control that.
yes,
You can. It's called schedule.
I don't know.
I absolutely agree with you, Tushar bhai, and it's very much related. Am I audible?
Yeah.
My internet keeps
Hassan
dropping.
can't-
Yeah. So I definitely agree with what you said with respect to personality. Between me and Soma, I'm a little more calm compared to her. She's got a little nervous temperament. But there could be other aspects as well involved in one becoming a bad cop and a good cop. Take Soma, for example. She's a stay-at-home mom. She has to do a lot of stuff at home. She's always around Ayana, who goes through hundreds of different moods throughout the day. So she probably wants to get done with things. She wants her to be fed on time. She wants her diaper to be changed on time. She wants her to be Yana to be given a bath at a certain time. Whereas I go out, I work, I get my break, I get to see other people. I come home a little refreshed. So I'm a little more calm. I'm a little more relaxed. So naturally, I can take on the role of being a good cop, even when I don't want it. With that said, I'm pretty sure that doesn't hold true for everyone. There are people who work their asses off to feed their family, who are working 18-hour days, 20-hour days. They come back home really tired and stressed. And those fathers become the bad cops. And naturally, when the father is a bad cop, moms have that instinct, I believe. They have their, they have that to them makes them good cop even if they don't want. So I think being a good cop, bad cop depends a lot on a person's personality, environment, what you're going through, what you see every day. But how do you ensure that the child does not start seeing the mother as being the bad cop always and the father as being a good cop always? I feel so. What I try to do is if I see Yana crying or agitated about something, I'll sit down with her. I'll start I'll start mumbling words because she's 20 months, so she doesn't speak much right now. I'll try to cheer her up, and at the same point of time, I'll try to make Soma a part of it as well, so that Ayana realizes that even the mom wants that. Perhaps her way of wanting it or her way of doing it was wrong, but she also wants that. So she's definitely not just the bad cop. I probably acted as the mediator in that moment, but the mom also wanted to do what I just did and improved your mood. So these are little things that we try to do with a conscious effort, so as to ensure that Yana doesn't start thinking that for all my happy moods I have to go to my dad, and for all my angry moods and my tantrums I have to go to the mom.
Yeah, and I think this also quite interesting. I think this notion of good cop, bad cop is also a little bit misconstrued, because actually, if I look back at it, it's not as if I'm sure Hassan bhai, you must get angry, right? You must get angry with your child. We get angry with our child. It's natural. I don't think it's good cop, bad cop, because I do think there's a certain extra layer. So basically, I actually think that because of the nature of the mums probably being um, more with it, more alert to these kind of things. Their tolerance for certain things are probably the same as us, but their reactions are probably less, more regular, but not as intense. So, for example, I don't know if you ever watched nature programs, but lionesses do this with their lion cubs. They're constantly keeping their lion cubs in check. But if things get really out of hand, the male lion will turn around and really lay down the law. And that's what I found with my father. My mom used to be the disciplinarian, but if dad got angry, then you're like, oh crap, I've done something bad here, right? So, and I think Arhan maybe has a sense of that because whenever I have got angry, he does get upset, but maybe it's less in terms of frequency and less intense as what Asta may do.
I would also like to add something.
Please do so.
So you know how mom tends to become the good cop is also because again it comes down to society. Like again that guilt component, because if the child hasn't eaten say at 2 and the child is still hungry, no one's gonna ask the dad. Okay, it's very natural to ask the mom, why is she crying? Is she hungry? Why did you not change her diaper? Like, like what are you so busy doing? Like this is the first thought that everybody has, like no matter what. Okay, so I think we've been socialized into constantly being like, it's as if people are watching us all the time. Oh my god, have we done something wrong? Oh my god, are we doing it okay?
Soma, it's not people. It's not people. This is self-inflicted from women to women. Has your father-in-law ever asked you this question?
That's a good point, actually.
Yeah, this is an innate competitiveness that happens between women. I think is completely different.
So I feel like
conversation.
I feel like dialogue needs to change. Like the way people speak to parents, the way people speak to mom needs to change so that we could get rid of that guilt that a mother. I'm not saying that people it's because of people that we feel guilty, but it's years and years of conditioning, years and years of observation, of seeing that it is the mom who does it and that it's the mom who's supposed to do it, that when it doesn't go according to our plan, we feel like, oh my God, if someone's going to ask me a question, how am I going to answer? Did I not do it properly today? So we need to change this. And I think it's going to take time, but people need to be more mindful of what they ask the mom. For example, if Ayana is crying, why are you asking me why she's crying? I don't know why she's crying. I'm not in her head. I'm trying to make her quiet, but just give me a moment. Like, that's my thing. Like, I cannot solve it immediately. So it's this constant pressure to be perfect, and that's why in the entire parenting dynamic, it's the mom who's always like edgy, and she's always trying to make it as best as she possibly can so that no one says anything.
Yeah, I think one no is what that Asta and me do. We never try and paint each other as the bad person. So one thing which I used to have when I was a kid, my mom would sometimes say, "Oh, if you don't do this, dad's gonna get really angry."
Yeah, that is.
Don't. That's one advice I'd give people. Don't do that, because then that innately plants bad seeds in the child's head.
And that happens a lot. If you don't do this, Papa will get angry.
Yeah.
Papa is going to scream at you. Like, it's something that goes on a lot. People say that a lot over here.
Thank you. Those were really interesting observations. We might just take 2-3 more minutes from the audience and from the panel. The audience now, the panel is open for your observation. If you want to even if you want to chime in certain opinions, you want to ask something personally, you want to share your views with the observations of the panel, the audience, the house is open for you. So you can switch on your video and audio and maybe address the concerns directly. Any of you, and from any demography as a matter of fact, because we have a number of demographies with us today. So we would love to hear from any one of you. We also have Dr. Hashmi with us today. And if she might, I don't know, if she is comfortable, Dr. Hashmi, we would love to hear your observation of raising 2 children as a single mother.
Go home.
Okay, can you hear me? I just want to add that it's such a good change that I'm seeing in your generation. Now where is everybody gone?
We're all here, Ammi. Here, hello. Just keep talking.
Acha, okay. So it's so good that I'm seeing such a change in your generation. But I think the complete change, or sort of 80% change, will come when there's the next generation, because it is coming, really. What I've heard from all of you, but this is not, you're not the representative of the whole nation. See, because I come across a lot of people in my daily practice, and sometimes when there is a problem with the young mothers and they don't eat properly and they are not being taken care of, I have to call their mother-in-laws, sometimes their mothers, and most of the time I force the husbands to come along with the mothers so they know what's happening to their wives. But it's so difficult to make them understand that what a mother is going through, what that young woman is going through while she's pregnant, while she's giving birth to the baby. They don't even want to come to the labor room to see what their wives are going through. So I think it's going to take ages to bring this change, really. But then I'm so glad that you people have started bringing this change, and I'm sure that through these webinars and the world going global, the change will come, inshallah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hashmi. Anyone else wants to share their opinions? Wants to chime in? Anything? All right.
A lot of people have left.
Yes, so I think we have just taken a little bit of more time, but thank you so much. Our chat boxes are full with congratulatory messages for the panel. Thank you so much, panel, for coming on board and sharing your views. Yes, Soma.
No, Hassan.
Maybe just before you end,
Sorry, yes.
obviously, First of all, happy Father's Day to all the fathers that joined us in, especially Tushar Bhai, because I can see your face.
Happy Father's Day.
Uh, Congratulations to all the mums that joined
Yeah.
us for presenting your point of views. We are proud of you, always will be. Just want to say a little thing before we go. We see a lot of these webinars, these talks, and we read a lot about these new changes and be it parenting, racism. But for a lot of us, it ends watching a video. Let us make a conscious effort to learn from each other, learn from what we heard from each other right now. Uh, Invest your time and energy in doing your own critical thinking, observing, making yourself knowledgeable. So, as I said in the beginning, we are no experts, we're no professionals, but I absolutely loved the concept of coming together and discussing each other's opinions and point of views. So this is my takeaway from this. Let us actually make a conscious effort, and all the people who joined in, we are still learning as parents. So please do help us and guide us in the future. But just stand with us, be there for us with respect to whatever decision in our journey of being a parent.
Yay.
Can I say something? You all have to make an active effort. See, things don't change within days. Wherever you are, whatever is your profession, whatever is your the scope, you must change. Like Astha, if she's a teacher, she can ask the mothers and the fathers to come along together for the child's benefit. Like I'm a doctor, so I force the husbands to come and sit with their wives. I call them in. If they do not want to come in, I refuse to see them. And I say, did you read the diet chart? Why didn't you read the diet chart? That's your duty. That's half of the pregnancy is yours. You should know what your wife is eating. And I ask them what their wife had the day before. So wherever you are, you must make an effort, an extra effort to bring the change, because otherwise it won't come. There won't be any change if we don't try. We'll be just limited to these webinars, really.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hashmi. And that was the signing note of today's webinar. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. The panel is marked on our social media handles. If you want to reach out to them personally, you may. Also, the recording of this webinar will be shared on a social media. So yeah, we can relive these moments. And yes, thank you so much and have a lovely evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pallavi. Thank you for organizing.
Thank you. It was really very nice. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.